Footage has surfaced from Saturday's loss in Atlanta that has the entire WNBA world talking. Caitlin Clark had just scored a basket early in the third quarter. She was on a heater. She had been carrying the Indiana Fever all night, running the offense, creating opportunities, doing everything a franchise player is supposed to do in a hostile building against a team that had already beaten them earlier in the week. And instead of letting her keep going, instead of keeping the ball in the hands of the player who was making everything work, Stephanie White pulled her aside and gave her an earful. Right after a made basket. Right at the moment the third quarter was starting.
Phenomenal job all season long getting to...
You see it. And this was before the turnovers. This was before any of that stuff, you guys. You have to know this was the beginning of the third quarter. Caitlin Clark had just scored. She had just scored a basket.
And after that sideline moment, Clark turned the ball over 5 times in a single quarter. Indiana got outscored 28-15. A 3-point halftime lead turned into a 10-point deficit. And by the time the final buzzer sounded, the Fever had lost 113-96, their second loss in 3 days to the same Atlanta team. The footage is out there. The pattern is undeniable. And what happened in that third quarter just got impossible to explain away.
I need to get the hell out of here, or y'all got to get this lady the hell out of here. Look at her. This is the sunken place. Caitlin, blink twice if everything's not okay. I know everything's not okay. I know everything's not okay. This is ridiculous.
If you have been watching this Fever season closely, you already know this is not the first time this pattern has shown up. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now because what we are about to break down gets worse the deeper you go. Let's establish exactly what happened in that game before the footage became the story. Indiana led 59-56 at halftime. Clark was doing what Clark does, pushing pace, finding open players, turning defense into offense. The two-man game with Aaliyah Boston that has been this team's most dangerous weapon all season was clicking. And then the third quarter started, and Clark came out of the halftime break to a sideline moment with White that captured perfectly what has been wrong with this team all season long. Instead of coming out of halftime ready to build on a lead, Clark came out of halftime being scolded. The result was exactly what anyone paying attention could have predicted. 5 turnovers, 28-15, outscored. A game that was completely in hand, completely falling apart. Now here is what makes this even harder to watch. After the game, Stephanie White walked to the podium and identified exactly the problem she wanted everyone to focus on.
Started with our turnovers. And we had 9 turnovers. They had 11 points off of those turnovers. You know, it's hard for us to recover when they get those direct points, and there's no transition defense for those kinds of turnovers. And it gave them a little momentum, and it gave them a boost.
That is what White chose to lead with when explaining how Indiana blew a double-digit lead in a single quarter and lost by 17. Not the schematic adjustment that stopped working. Not the fact that her team's best player appeared visibly shaken coming out of a sideline exchange at the exact moment the game started to slip. The turnovers. And here is what makes that framing so deliberate. Atlanta had only 3 more points off turnovers than Indiana did in that game. 3. The gap that White is using to explain a 17-point loss is 3 points. That is not what lost this game. That is a coach pointing at a number that supports a narrative and leaving everything else out of the explanation. And then something happened at that same press conference that tells you everything about the dynamic inside this Indiana Fever organization. While White was at the podium pointing at turnovers, Clark was at her own podium taking the blame for all of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think just got to take care of the ball better, and that starts with me. So I think just focusing on that, and then, you know, what we did well in the first half was playing transition, spray, find open people, and then it's really hard to do that when all we do is foul and they score. Like, we didn't play in transition at all in the second half because of that.
That starts with me. That is Caitlin Clark, in front of cameras after a 17-point loss, publicly absorbing responsibility for the third quarter collapse that happened immediately after the footage of White scolding her surfaced. She is not pointing fingers. She is not calling out the coaching decision that disrupted her rhythm at the exact start of that collapse. She is standing at a microphone saying it starts with her. And while she is doing that, her coach is at a different microphone talking about turnovers as if the footage of that sideline moment does not exist and is not circulating everywhere right now. The contrast between those two press conferences is not subtle. Clark is covering for the organization the same way she has been covering for it all season. When the trade rumors were flying, she publicly defended White. When the playoff game plan was questioned, she took the blame. When the locker room tension was being written about everywhere, she called it speculation, not journalism, at a press conference. Every single time there has been an opportunity for Clark to publicly confirm what everyone watching can already see, she has chosen to absorb the heat instead. And the organization that benefits from her silence is the same one that just let footage of her being scolded after a made basket define their third quarter collapse. Here is what should have happened in that moment. Caitlin Clark scores. You are up 3 at halftime. Your franchise player is the reason you have a lead going into the second half. You do not stop her flow with a sideline lecture at the exact moment she needs to carry that momentum into the third quarter. You let her play. You let the hot hand cook. You do not turn the third quarter opening into a coaching moment that visibly disrupts the player carrying your entire season on her back. Every coach at the highest level of basketball knows that you do not break a hot player's rhythm with criticism immediately after a made basket. This is not a complex tactical question. It is the most basic principle of managing a star player in a high-stakes moment. And the footage shows exactly what happened when that principle got ignored. And when asked whether there was anything different she could do schematically to fix the problems that keep showing up in these exact situations, White's answer was as revealing as anything else from that night.
There are only so many schemes you can do. So I think for us, it's just being more intentional and having a higher discipline level when we're in those moments. A lot of our fouls are coming because we're not taking care of the point, and then we're getting in rotation, or we're behind plays, or we're late, and that's where a lot of our fouls are coming from.
There are only so many schemes you can do. After 2 losses in 3 days to the same team, after a 17-point blowout where a double-digit lead evaporated in a single quarter, after footage surfaced showing her disrupting her own franchise player's rhythm at the exact moment the game started to slip. There are only so many schemes you can do. That is not a coach identifying what needs to change. That is a coach telling you that nothing is going to change. That the same approach that just produced 2 consecutive losses to Atlanta will be the same approach going forward. That the scheme is not the problem. The players are the problem. And the player White has been pointing to explicitly or implicitly in every single press conference this season is Caitlin Clark. This is the full picture now. Footage of White scolding Clark after a basket at the start of a quarter Indiana was about to lose by 13 points. A post-game press conference where White leads with turnovers, while Clark stands at a separate microphone saying it all starts with her. A coach who, when asked whether she has any schematic answers to a 2-game losing streak, says there are only so many schemes. The footage is out, the press conferences are on record, and the pattern that has been building since the beginning of this season just showed itself in the clearest possible way in Atlanta. Caitlin Clark is averaging 26 points through these 2 Atlanta games and taking public responsibility for both losses. The coach who disrupted her rhythm with a sideline lecture after a made basket is blaming turnovers. Draw your own conclusions. What do you think? Is Stephanie White sabotaging Caitlin Clark, or is this just bad coaching? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because this story is not slowing down. We will see you in the next one.